China is starting to feel the effects of these US tariffs.
Okay.
They're getting less orders, they're pausing production, and they're looking at new markets as those impacts of the US tariffs start to creep in. They're losing orders. That's hitting jobs, forcing Chinese exporters to start doing other things, trying to get other customer bases happening. And some companies are already building businesses on other trade routes from China. What they've cleverly done in the US is kind of shut down the backdoor entry into the US, like, oh, right, we'll move these products from China to, let's say, Australia, and then we'll ship it over from Australia to the United States and say it's from Australia.
Right.
They've shut down those kind of tricks, and this is really starting to hurt. In fact, I was watching during the week, the unemployment rate about 2 years ago was over 20% for Chinese youth. And now it's really hurting because they're coming out of these universities, they can't get jobs, they can't get work.
Well, they're overqualified now, aren't they? Let's face it.
Well, the jobs just aren't there. And now you compound this, they're in a very vulnerable position, not to mention the compounded fact prior to all of these tariffs happening, China was having a big meltdown in its property sector.
Oh, the real estate market
and
was crazy, wasn't it?
the whole Evergrande debacle where they lost billions and billions of dollars on real estate developments. This is really hurting their economy. And you can see how they've gone into conservative type investments over the years, buying gold, buying gold, buying gold. But you got to remember, China is very much, its GDP growth is on manufacturing and selling to people who want to buy cheap stuff.
Sure.
And when you've got, the United States with millions upon millions of middle class to high earning incomes buying their stuff, and now they're going, whoa, 149% tariffs. We're rethinking where we're going to bring them in.
Well, the Americans, one thing that the Americans do really, really well is consume. Okay, they are the kings and queens of that length of. Sorry.
They are literally the kings of consumption. The American middle class is responsible for like 30% of the world's consumption.
30%.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm not even surprised. And obviously the Chinese are very good at making cheap things, copying things, knock off of just about everything. So this is a seismic sort of shift.
But you got 347 million people in the United States.
Yep. Yeah, it's a fair market. Yeah.
Compare that to what, 23 to 25 million here in Australia?
Like literally, so 15 people to every one of us in Australia. And a country of physically about very, very similar size.
Yeah, so just to reinforce what Derek was saying earlier about the youth unemployment in China as well, they've stopped reporting on the figures a couple of years ago, but the universities each year they publicise the percentage of students that get a job within the first 12 months of leaving university, and only 55% of university graduates are actually finding employment.
Wow.
So the youth 55% are finding jobs in the first 12 months. So 45% of all university graduates unemployed.
What you've also seen is
everything else.
Yeah.
Uncertainty in the banking sector has also been a big problem for China as well, with a lot of the big banks buying smaller ones out. But you're getting leaking reports coming out of the Chinese not being able to pull their money out of their bank accounts and this sort of stuff. And so when people can't get access to their funds and they can't feed their families, that's when they start to arc up. And there are rumors, are we going to see another Tiananmen type revolution over there? This is they have got to sort this out very quickly, and sometimes you got to swallow your pride and negotiate. The US is saying the ball's in your court, we're willing to negotiate, but they're a very proud nation, so it's going to be interesting how this plays out.
It's I think the reporting out of China is you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. So couple of the other things, there's all these real estate agents are just selling houses for 40% of what they were sold for 2 years ago. People are they're mass selling the houses. Apparently it used to be you talk to someone, it's like, oh yeah, my house is worth $9,000 per square meter, blah, blah, blah. Now they're saying, oh, have you sold your house yet? Because everyone's just pulling out of the market because it's just so unstable at the moment. Now going back to the Tiananmen Square incident, what's happening at the universities, there's a town. So China has like this main university city, and there's like millions of students there. And so what happens is that 40 kilometers away, there's a town that's famous for their dumplings. So what all the university students have been doing at night, they go hire all the push bikes and they ride down the freeway and we're talking hundreds of thousands of university students every week. They ride down to this dumpling shop, go buy dumplings, then ride back to shut down the freeway. So they're not doing a protest per se, but they're just being really, really annoying. It got to the point where the CCP are so worried about Tiananmen Square that they've turned around and said, right, you're not hiring bikes after hours. A lot of universities have been given instructions you are not allowed to let the students out after a certain time period, and they're even trying to get this town to stop producing dumplings so the students can't say, right, we're doing this.
They're not gremlins, okay? You can feed them after midnight. They can have their dumplings. I mean, okay, you've got to give it to them, though, those people who want to demonstrate. And we certainly know through ourselves and what we had to go through with the COVID carry-on, okay, as far as exercising our rights and getting out there and having an exercise. It's good to see that the Chinese, well, I'm going to assume the youth, but I'm not really sure on that, but certainly coming from universities, it's good to see them actually getting out there and finding a creative way of being heard.
You're assuming they're protesting. That may not be the thing. I mean, young people do young people stuff. You know, I did a lot more creative, crazy stuff than go out for dumplings on a bicycle at the middle of the night. I haven't done that one yet. But
you weren't living under a regime. It's
really the way they're trying not to get the irk of the government is most of them, whilst they're riding down there, they've attached the Chinese Communist Party flags to their bike and they're singing the national anthem. They're being super annoying, but they're supporting the regime by flying their flag and singing their things. And like you can see it, they're absolutely pulling the piss as they're doing it. It's hilarious. So it's great.